Welcome to the Smart Thinking Podcast. This is my dad, Ted.
Welcome to the Smart Thinking Podcast. I'm your host, Ted Knightsky. The other day I was doom scrolling through TikTok and I came across a man randomly discussing squeezing an orange. I thought it was kind of weird, but then I watched it and I found his discussion a powerful lesson and one I find very applicable to how we support ourselves and others every day. His name is Wayne Dyer, and here's what he said. When you squeeze an orange, you'll always get orange juice to come out. What comes out is what's inside. The same logic applies to you. When someone squeezes you, puts pressure on you, or says something unflattering or critical, and out of you comes anger, hatred, bitterness, tension, depression, or anxiety, that is what's inside. If love and joy are what you want to give and receive, change your life by changing what's inside. I thought that was amazing. So today, I want to help change what's inside of us. You see, like the food we put in us, that is what's inside of us. So what we think and do and learn are all being put into our emotional and wisdomatic bank. The more we focus on what we put in, who we surround ourselves with, and how we live, the more we serve others through our leadership. Speaking of which, let's do our weekly reminders. We are, after all, buffaloes, storm chargers, people who actively and proactively live our lives running into the storms instead of away from them. We do this by recognizing a few things about ourselves. First, that we practice leadership, and remember that everyone who has influence over another person is a leader, making each of us a leader all of the time, everywhere, and with everything that we do, because people are constantly watching. We are, at the same time, followers. People who follow by collaborating with each other, accepting responsibility, being resilient, and most importantly, being engaged with intention. And we fuel it all with empathy, the ability to put ourselves into the shoes of other people and wonder what it would be like to be them right now. And finally, we do that because we're reflective, ending every day by asking ourselves, what did we do well for others today? So, all right, knowing that, we need to focus on depositing the right stuff inside of us so that when we are squeezed, we respond the way the world needs us to. And the opportunity for us is our language and our behaviors to certain situations. Actually, to all situations. The title of the podcast is C2S. And what I want to help you put into yourself is both a mindset and a strategy so that when you're squeezed, you can respond. Now, the C stands for complain or criticize. A common response when we feel threatened or not in control. And the S stands for solution or strategy. We need to move from C to S, complaint or criticism, to solution or strategy. And we need to do that quickly. However, many people don't have that mindset or do not work in a culture that supports solutions. So, what do? Well, that's easy. You know what's easy? Casting blame and complaining, criticizing without understanding. What's difficult? Being positive and proactive, seeing a problem and working towards solutions and strategies, and then sticking to them with resiliency. Why is it hard? Because the norm is pity parties, not solution soirees. Ooh, a little French. Let's invest something in ourselves and position us so that when we're quizzed, we move to solution fast. I mean, that's what buffaloes do, by the way, all day long. Move to solutions fast. Now that we know the problem, let's get to a solution. Oh, but before we start the solution, of course, I have a story. In 2004, my wife Megan and I decided that we needed to move from our cute little cottage-like house into a larger home as we expanded our family. We wanted all different types of things, and we decided that we wanted a large lot for our kids to play on, and I wanted to live close to nature, like a forest or trails or the beach. Well, being educators, living by the beach was not an option. So we found this spec house out in the country that wasn't quite finished yet, and we built it out to be everything we wanted. Our little son, Charlie, the lead of this story, was 2 years old and loved to go for hikes with me, especially in my backpack carrier. I'd strap him in there and we would go. We'd go for hours in the woods, and he'd tug on my hat and my ears, and we'd talk the entire time and explore as much as possible. It was a cool little strategy for me because I could also build in his afternoon nap while getting all different types of exercise and just watching him fall asleep in that little carrier as I hiked the kettle moraines of Wisconsin. Okay, little digression. So when we'd hike, we'd collect a list of what we saw. And when we got home, he'd report back to his mom what he saw. 4 rabbits, a hawk, a sparrow, 2 squirrels, and 1 deer. He'd always fall asleep on these hikes, and we'd enjoy that time together. Just prepping for this podcast, I got teary-eyed missing those days because now he's 23 years old, a full-time teacher, and I can't keep up with him when we go on hikes. And someday, eventually, maybe he'll throw me in a backpack and carry me through the woods where I'll just sleep through the trip. Anyway, about 200 yards from our new backyard, we discovered a little trail that had been carved out over the years and was now a half-a-mile loop. It was perfect for a 2-year-old in a nightly walk, a morning walk, or an afternoon walk. Over the years, it was clear that young kids had built up this whole little trail area with their dirt bikes and BMX bikes because they had built dirt ramps all around the trail, and you could see where they had put little jumps. The first time Charlie walked the trail, he was pretty excited, and he would run ahead looking for wildlife or flowers, a rock, a stick, or whatever got his attention. And as we explored the trail, he was getting a little tired from his 20-foot sprints back and forth between me and whatever he had found. About 2/3 of the way through the trail, we came across for the very first time a small but steep hill. It was maybe 10 feet high, but it had the steepness of a regular staircase. Me and our dog Sammy walked up the hill, and I turned around, and the little 2-footer Charlie was looking at the hill like it was Mount Everest. He put out his arms. That's the international child signal for pick me up. I walked down the hill, and I picked him up, because his face looked as if he'd rather turn around than do this rock climb or cliff that was in front of him. We got to the top, and he, of course, ran down the other side. This repeated for days as we walked this trail. Every afternoon or evening, he would get to that little spot, and he'd throw up his arms, and I would pick him up, and sometimes I just started to do it. Until what got put in front of him came out. You see, when I was reflecting the other day while running about the orange analogy, I was thinking to myself, when was the first time I ever saw this? That I saw what we put in as what comes out when we're squeezed. It was with my little son Charlie in the woods behind our house. You see, we introduced Charlie to the show Thomas the Train, so he was fascinated with trains, and frankly, so was I, and everyone else who loved the first grandchild on both sides of the family. Everyone brought him train everything all of the time. This kid had trains everywhere. He even slept with his little blue wooden train named Gordon. And on top of trains, he loved stories about trains, books about trains, and seeing trains. Well, one day we go for a hike, and I get to the steep hill, and I go to pick him up as I had dozens of times before, and he pushes me away and tells me, "You go up the hill, Dad." I had no clue what was going on, so I went to the top of the hill. I turn around, and I see him talking to himself and a very fierce look on his face. I'd never seen this in him before, and I couldn't hear what he was saying, so I walked halfway down the hill, and then I heard it. I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. He was squeezed, and what was coming out? The story of the little engine that could. Here he was, 2 foot 3 inches tall, 32 months old, and he was already learning and withdrawing what was put inside of him. His grandma, my mom, had bought him the book The Little Engine That Could and read it to him the night before when she had babysat him. And weeks of not believing he could scale this mini mountain. And suddenly one investment in him from his grandmother through a book. And then when he reached that mountain again, and when he was squeezed, he channeled the little engine that could, because it was inside of him. He stood at the bottom of the hill, and only as he could, only as a child could, he started moving his arms like they were on the wheels of a locomotive, and he started walking up the hill saying to himself, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. And then just before he summited, he started saying, I know I can, I know I can, I know I can. And before I knew it, he was running down the hill shouting, choo, choo. I chased after him, and I grabbed him, throwing him up into the air with a loud, well done, Charlie. And he smiled and said, I'm just like the little engine, Dad. That memory is seared in me, and serves as a reminder that attitude is not fixed, it's learned. When squeezed, after learning how to deal with it, he responded by believing in the process. He saw the problem and moved to solution, and the solution was within him. Now, what about us? What are we going to do? When we or others are trapped in the sea, complaining and criticizing, what will we do different when we need to move to solution or strategy? We should start with getting the little engine, that could book, and having that on our desks as a symbolic visual to all of us. However, not everyone, when squeezed, is going to charge into their storm or go up the hill. So how do we support the needs from so many who want to complain or criticize, and move those many people, including ourselves, to action? Well, first, we have to remember that an unspoken expectation can never be met. So let's create some clear expectations. C2S is now the expectation. We can complain or criticize in an effort to understand. However, we do that just for 2 minutes, and then each of us has to move to solution. Complain to solution. The 2 is how much time you get to spend on it, because we've got infinite amounts of times to solve the problem. No conversation should ever end with complaints or criticism. It should end with strategies and solution. Because in the end, that's what's going to get us moving. It will end with action or an intentional cognition of an inaction as a strategy. Well, that sounded very confusing, Ted. What does that even mean? Wait, inaction? Yeah, so let me say it again. No conversation will end with more frustration. We have to stop bringing ourselves to greater levels of frustration by complaining or criticizing, and then bringing us and everyone else with us into a pit of pessimism. It will end with an action or an intentional cognition of an inaction as a strategy. In other words, doing nothing. Yes, that's some of the times we actually have to put energy into the things that we can control, and we have to step away from the things beyond our control. We have to be like Elsa and let it go. Was that a Frozen reference? Okay. How do we coach people and put more into them so that when they're squeezed, we move to strategy and solution? Well, first, we need to become aware of our ability as a leader to model our expectations and C2S in our own actions. Step 1, acknowledge the problem and don't ignore it. Step 2, formulate ideas for how to address it. Step 3, include others to support, validate, or challenge your solutions, and then pick a strategy or solution to move forward. And finally, coach others to solutions, which is what we're going to review right now. You see, every complaint or criticism is an opportunity for improvement and not an opportunity to join in the chant. It is so easy to unempathetically complain or criticize. It takes time and effort to come prepared with a solution, and we need to help people get there by doing some or all of the following steps. I'm calling it 8 is enough. And that's how we move from C to S. Because 8 is enough things to do in order to help people. And you don't have to do all 8 of these. You can just do one of them. So, number 1 is acknowledge emotion before analysis. In other words, before using the data, step back and recognize that there's going to be emotion involved in this conversation. Now, why does this work? Because people can't problem solve until they feel heard. And how do you do it? Well, you reflect what you hear. It sounds like you're frustrated because. And then we avoid debating or defending. Simply validate the feeling that you're hearing from the other person. Then we shift. Let's think about what's in our control. And a key phrase is, I hear how that's been difficult. Let's talk about what we can influence today. Did you hear that? Let's talk about what we can influence today. The second step is ask power questions to shift ownership. Now, I love this statement, power questions, because these are powerful inquiries. And why does this work? Well, questions redirect the brain from complaint to creativity. Here's some questions you could ask. What would a win look like here? Oh, I love that. I love that. We're all sitting around kvetching and complaining, and somebody says, wait a minute, what would it look like if we had a win? What would happen if you could change one thing about this? And what would it be? What's one step we can take this week to make progress towards proactivity? How have you seen this handled well before? Oh, that question is one of my favorites. Reframing the current situation into context, a historical review of, wait a minute, when we've had this problem before or faced something similar, what have we done? And the key phrase here is, that's a good observation. What do you think we could try? When trying to reinforce other people's knowledge, efforts, and wisdom. Okay, number 3 of 8, name the pattern very gently. Well, actually, not too gently. There is a point at which we need to say, knock it off, please. But naming the pattern. This works because when we bring awareness, it breaks the cycles of negativity. It's statements like this. I've noticed we've been focusing a lot on what's not working. Can we take 5 minutes to brainstorm what might work? Keep your tone neutral and be curious and not accusatory, but reframe what's going on by asking, listen, we've been spending a lot of time on negative pieces. Can we talk about what could potentially work here? That is just enough sometimes to shake people off of their negative block that they're standing on. However, again, sometimes we need to simply knock them off and say, listen, we're not doing this. We need to move forward. So one of the things you can say when you're coaching people through this is, let's see if we can shift from describing the problem to designing a solution. C2S. Number 4, set time boundaries for venting. I love this one, and I've used this in the past. That's why there's the number 2 in there. See, 2 minutes to solution. Complain 2 minutes to solution. Why does this work? Well, it gives space for expression, but keeps focus on progress. People do need to vent, but they also need to dump their problems off onto the table so we can pick them up and fix them. So, let me give you this example. Let's take 2 minutes to get frustrations out per person, then 10 minutes to talk about solutions. Just come up with a ratio. This signals empathy as well as a desire to get moving, to go to the storm, a sense of urgency. And the phrase that's really powerful is, hey, let's air it out here for a few minutes, then shift gears to talk about and design what we can do about it. Number 5, use appreciative inquiry. This is something where, again, we lead with the simple fact that we are grateful for the pieces and ideas that people are bringing, as well as their wonders and worries. Reframe the criticism into, I wonder what they're worrying about. Now, this works because it reframes energy towards what's actually working, and then we can build on that success. So we have to ask questions like, hey, when we have handled something like this well in the past, what have we done and how has it felt? And what strengths can we leverage here today to do this? Oh, I had to build in a little Clifton strengths here someplace. Okay, so what do we say? Well, let's build on what's already strong. When we talk about appreciative inquiry, it's really appreciating what we're doing, what's gone well, and then saying things like, hey, we're doing pretty well. Let's just keep building on it. Which brings us to number 6. Model forward-focused language. That's right. People mirror the tone of their leader, and don't forget that. Replace things like they should with we can. Replace it's always been with this time we can. And publicly praise forward thinking. I appreciate the fact that we are looking forward into the future and not holding ourselves back into things we cannot control. A buffalo would go into the storm that they're facing, and of course the cow is just going to sit around and be like, oh, I miss the old days. A key way to reinforce this is to say things like, I appreciate that idea. That's the kind of thinking that moves us forward, because positive reinforcement is what people will work towards in a collaborative setting. 7. Number 7 of 8. Remind people of the circle of control. This works because it helps people see where they have power. So up on the board, you draw 3 circles. One is labeled control, one is labeled influence, one is labeled concern. And in control, we write, what can we directly act upon? In other words, what's within our purview? Influence, what can we shape indirectly through communication or conversations? And then finally, concern, what we can't control. And then we refocus on the inner 2, control and influence. And we acknowledge the fact that there are things that we cannot control, and when they come up again, we go back and we tap on that circle, not within our control. And the key phrase here for us to remember is, which parts of this within our circles of control can we actually address? This is really, really important because many of us get into a situation, especially leaders in the hierarchy, when we're delivering the messages or ideas that have been developed collaboratively by groups of people. And sometimes you fall in a level of the hierarchy where you're dead set in the middle. There's 2 or 3 levels above you, and there's 2 or 3 levels below you. And when you get resistance, a lot of the times that below area really can light a fire beneath you and make it difficult. Difficult to lead and own the solutions going on around us, because it's pretty easy to blame up. But when you say, listen, this is what's within our circle of control, it allows us to move forward. Now, 8 is enough? Let's get to 8. End every meeting with an action commitment. When we're sitting around and we are allowing the people around us to complain, not to solution, but just complaining to complain, criticizing to criticize, and we don't end the meeting in a manner that allows us to move forward. We're just leaving an open hole for everybody to jump into later to complain some more. That's not our job. You know what our job is? It's to allow the complaining for 2 minutes and then get to solutions, and then end every meeting with a commitment. Action turns talk into progress and reinforces accountability for all. We need to ask questions like, what's our next step and who's doing what by when? Very simple. What's the definition of done here moving forward? Write it down, circulate it, commit to it, and then follow up. And the key phrases here for us as leaders is, we're leaving this room today with one action item each so that we can move ourselves forward. I call these 8 is enough for 2 reasons. It's enough ways to approach complaints and criticism so that when you're squeezed, you can respond. And it's enough. It's enough complaining and criticism because it's getting people nowhere. Solutions and strategies move you into the storms you're facing. There is very little good that comes from surrounding yourself with like-minded negative people who are unwilling to recognize that they do not have control, or an unwillingness to take control over what they do have control over and instead delegate that negativity to other people. We are what is inside of us, so we are obligated to put more in so that when squeezed, we respond with lots of good ways to move onward. And that's what we do. Onward into the storms we're facing, equipped with the tools to do so, so that when we are squeezed, what comes out is positivity and the words, charge, because we need to go into the storms that we are facing. So let's do some smart thinking. Describe your initial responses when you're squeezed. List 8 is enough strategies that you could employ. And then analyze the people around you today and how you could help them when they're squeezed. That's it. That's the Smart Thinking Podcast. Hey, as always, thank you for listening. And please make sure to share this episode, rate this episode, and help me help others by bringing smart thinking to as many people as possible. Also, thank you for listening each week and committing yourselves to these small little opportunities we have to take strategies and employ them to serve ourselves and others in a better way each day. Please make sure to follow and like the Smart Thinking TikTok page, C2S is Smart Thinking, where every day, pretty much every day, I drop some sort of 1-minute reflection for you to think about off of some experience I had that day while thinking about you. Also, I have to share with you, I lost the Smart Thinking Facebook page to hackers, and Facebook won't give it back to me. It's very frustrating, and I've been working on it for over a month. And finally, thank you to the Well Pennies for their great music and for always allowing me to end with their upbeat, optimistic rhythms, rhymes, and melodies to bring you onto your day. Okay, as we close out, I have one more strategy to help you move from C to S. Your herd. Who do you surround yourself with, and what do they put in you? I'm pretty fortunate to have a few really close friends in my life who will on occasion pick up on a vibe that I might be giving off. More like when I sound not entirely like myself, kind of like a guitar that's slightly out of tune. They hear that, and they pick up on it. You see, left to your own all of the time, there is a point at which there is no more juice to squeeze. And that's when we need others to recognize in us that we need to be refueled. As an example, I got 2 calls in the last 3 weeks that not only fueled me, they filled me. One from my friend Dan, and one from my friend Heidi. Now, they each had very different behaviors that I want to share with you because I think each of us can learn from them so that when people we see are a little out of tune and a little out of juice, we can fill them back up. So I have this friend, Dan, and that he has this really keen way of noticing when I'm squeezed, and he always puts more in. Dan has this great way of calling and just saying, I'm checking in, and then he positively reinforces what I'm doing and dismisses the negativity that might be igniting around me. He's very, very calm and kind when he does it. And this gentle reminder and positive reinforcement works a ton, and it serves as a reminder to all of us, even those of us that are obnoxiously optimistic, that we need others in the herd to step up and into the storm for and with us. Positive reinforcement helps get us from C to S. Surround yourself with people who put more into you when they see you being squeezed. And the other is my friend Heidi. Heidi has this cool habit of acknowledgement. She will just randomly call and remind me and others how we were there for her or other people, and she will acknowledge it. It's a filler as well, because you may have those momentary moments of self-doubt, and then all of a sudden you catch a call from a friend who's like, hey, I saw this, or do you remember when? And I'm so happy you're my friend because you were here for me this day, or I really like what you did there. She sent me a simple text the other day when she saw a picture of me and my daughter Grace hiking in Joshua Tree, California. And she just wrote, I can't believe you can find time for your family and balancing all of your work. Good for you. And it was just a reminder that, you know what? She acknowledged something that was important to me that I was working on, and it filled me up. So, while we may sometimes have to facilitate to support C2S as people are being squeezed, we also have to look for the ways others are filling us up. So thanks, Dan and Heidi. All right, this week, 8 is enough. It's time to move rapidly from C to S and position all of us to take on the world around us so that we can meet our mission, grow stronger, and grow through the storms that are coming. Complaining is fine for 2 minutes, but proactively moving yourself forward is a lifetime of engagement, purpose, and leadership. So you know what? Get to it.
Hey, put the world away, fight a little longer until you feel okay. 'Cause there's nothing I can do when everything's the matter and there's no one left like you. Wait for the sunlight. Love or leave, what life would I lose? Ooh la la, ooh la 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 la. Don't you wanna feel it too? Heal your heart with rhythm and blues. Ooh la la, ooh la 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 la. Don't you wanna feel it too? Ooh la la, ooh la 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 la. Don't you wanna feel it too? As emotion, I know it feels that way, but hope's a honey in the air, a melody around you and no one else is there. Wait for the sunlight. Love or leave, what life would I lose? Ooh la la, ooh la 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 la. Don't you wanna feel it too? And heal your heart with rhythm and blues. Ooh la la, ooh la 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 la. Don't you wanna feel it too? Ooh la la, ooh la 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 la. Don't you wanna feel it too? So I've been learning as I go. There are 100 more I know, and I wanna close my eyes and wait for the sunlight. Love or leave, what life would I lose? Ooh la la, ooh la 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 la. Don't you wanna feel it too? And heal your heart with rhythm and blues. Ooh la la, ooh la 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 la. Don't you wanna feel it too?